These bandits deserve little more than a blade in their spine.
The fight!
That's the end of it.
There's just no way. Some arms! I swear, I can back.
Well bloody done. Can you smell magica in the air too? It smells like a rainless thunderstorm.
Lost Legends by Talsgar the Elder, Archivist of Winterhold, a collection of less well-known folk tales from Skyrim's past. The history of Skyrim is vast, predating even the most ancient records of man and Mare. Much has been lost, fallen to the ravages of war or the turning of the ages, but nothing is ever truly forgotten. Where no records exist, legends and folk tales offer us a key to the past, a way to piece together truths half remembered in the minds of men. For generations, the people of Mortal have told whispered tales of the Pale Lady, a ghostly woman who wanders the northern marshes, forever seeking her lost daughter. Some say she steals children who wander astray, others that her sobbing wail strikes dead all those who hear it. But behind these tales may lie a kernel of truth, for the ancient records speak of Omriel, a mysterious figure Ysgramor's heirs battled for decades and finally sealed away. Reachmen tell the story of Phelan Red Eagle, an ancient king who rallied his people and drove back the armies of Cyrodiil with a flaming sword. So accounts vary, they too seem to be based on an underlying truth. The imperial chronicles of Empress Hestra mention a rebel leader of that era who was eventually cornered and slain in battle at the cost of a full legion of men. But some tales prove far harder to analyze. Among scholars, perhaps the best known is the forbidden legend of the Archmage Galdur. In the dawning days of the First Era, the story goes, there lived a powerful wizard by the name of Galdur. Wise and just, he was well known in the courts of King Harold and the Jarls of Skyrim, and his aid and counsel were sought by man and mare alike. And then he was murdered. Some say one of his sons killed him. Others, that King Harold, jealous of his power, gave the order himself. But Galdur's 3 sons fled into the night, pursued by a company of Harold's best warriors and the Lord Geramund, the king's personal battle mage. A great chase ensued, from the wilds of the Reach to the glacial north. One brother is said to have perished in the ruins of Folgenthur at the foot of Solitude. The others were run to ground soon thereafter, and once it was done, King Harold ordered every record of their murders destroyed, and Galdur's name and deeds were struck from the rolls of history. Even today, few sources remain, and no bard foretells the tale. But perhaps the truth yet remains in some ancient ruin, waiting to be unearthed. For nothing is ever truly forgotten. Danis Valen's Journal by Danis Valen details Valen's efforts to hunt down the Galdur legend. 18th of Morningstar, 4th Era, 201. How long has it been since I first heard the Galdur legend? 80 years? 100? I can think of nothing else now. My goal is at hand. After years of searching, I have finally traced the ivory claw to a collector in Brayville. His death was necessary, but I have it. At last, I have it. 22nd of Morningstar, 4th Era, 201. 3 days of non-stop riding. I reached Anvil ahead of my pursuers, and took passage on the Ice Runner, bound for Solitude once more. 29th of Morningstar, 4th Era, 201. The other passengers are becoming suspicious. Returning from dinner, I caught one brute rooting around in my quarters. He almost found the claw. Had the captain not intervened, I would have flayed him alive. I had hoped to spend the voyage sequestered in my room, reviewing my notes and preparing spells, but I need to deflect some attention from myself. I'll have to mingle, pretend to be just another petty mage, for now. 2nd of Sun's Dawn, 4th Era, 201. The brute claims to be an adventurer, off to seek his fortune in the ruins of Skyrim with his companions. Perhaps I can turn this to my advantage. use them as fodder for the traps and Draugr within the tombs. I can see the greed in his eyes. Yes, that should work. 3 weeks to solitude, the captain says. If I have to suffer these fools longer than that, I'll swim. 27th of Sun's Dawn, 4th Era, 201. With the brute and his companions in tow, I led our band across the marsh to Folgenthur, where we made camp for the night. Little has changed since my first expedition 10 years ago, but this time I have the claw, and I will have the amulet. I spent all night preparing a synopsis of my notes, in case some fragment of the tale or piece of ancient lore may be needed to bypass the wards within the tomb. Then I cast all my books and scrolls into the fire, and reduced my life's work to ashes. At long last, today is the day of reckoning. If I cannot have the amulet, no one will. Danis Valen's Notes by Danis Valen, a summary of research of the Galdur legend. How to summarize a lifetime of research? So little of what I have learned matters now. The petty politics of ancient times, the age-long campaign to wipe out all mention of the Galdur name. I know not what awaits us within Folgenthur. So here, then, is the truth of the tale, as best as I have been able to piece it together. In the opening days of the First Era, the Archmage Galdur was revered throughout the north. Wisdom, wealth, honor, and power were his, and even Isgramor's heirs sought his counsel. Smothered by his shadow, Galdur's 3 sons grew cruel and resentful. They lusted after their father's power and prestige, and eventually Yrek, the eldest, discovered its source, a mysterious amulet from which he never parted. Together, they conspired to murder their father in his sleep and divide his amulet between them, and so it was done. Consumed by their newfound power, the brothers laid waste to the surrounding villages. So great was the carnage that the High King himself intervened, sending a company of battle mages, led by the Archmage Garamund, to subdue the brothers. After a devastating battle, the 3 fled the field. Myrkul, the youngest, was run to ground in Folgenthur, the ancient barrows at the foot of Solitude. And though he fought for 3 days and nights, he was at last overcome and entombed there, his crypt sealed by an ivory claw. Garamund pursued Yrek to the shattered crypts of Sarthal, half buried even then. 10 veteran wizards fell before Yrek's elemental magic, but he could not overcome them all together. He too fell, and was sealed within the ruined city. And at last, Sigdis was cornered in the southernmost reaches of Skyrim. He challenged Lord Garamund to a duel, knowing his foe was honor-bound to accept, and they clashed in battle, matched strength for strength, and fell together on the field before Ivarstead. The High King ordered a tomb built for Garamund on the lake, which still bears his name, and had Sigdis sealed within, forever guarded by the one who slew him. Galdur himself was interred in a cave not far from where his tower once stood, in the place called Reachwater Rock. And when it was done, King Harald issued an edict. The name and deeds of Galdur and his sons were to be expunged from every record, every chronicle. Under pain of death, no word of them was to be spoken, lest any try to recover the amulet that had been sealed at so great a cost. And so it was done, but a little survived the ages. Enough. 4,000 years have passed, and the tombs remain sealed. The fragments of the Galdur amulet lie within. Since the day I first heard the rumor, I have felt its power, calling to me, pulling at me. I will be the one to reclaim it, restore it, bear it out into the world once more. I must have it. I must!
Piss off!
I'll make sure they regret it. My gorgeous wife. places like this, silence doesn't feel like silence. It always feels like it's waiting and holding its breath.
That can't be good. I know better tricks than that. Good riddance.
Well, it's not the first ruin we've delved into.
breath.
You've got nothing!
You hear that?
As easy as that.
A writ of sealing. A writ for the sealing away of Mikrul Galderson. Be bound here, Mikrul, murderer, betrayer, condemned by your crimes against realm and lord. May your name and your deeds be forgotten forever, and the charm which you bear be sealed by our ward.
If we keep this up, I'm gonna start putting notches on my belt here soon.
Oh, wait. I meant to mark my kills. Not just to mark my kills. That's it. Yes.
Well, my love, that's all over and I'm bloody relieved for it. Now we need to relax, eat, drink and be merry and celebrate another job well done. Ha! Here we go. Fuck off! We should really hit back home soon to check on the kids.
Sinnar's Tower Notes. Deep in the swamps of Hjolmarch, where the branches are gnarled and the mist is thick, lies a tower of unknown provenance. Few in the province dare speak the name Myrwatch, and those that do couch their words with apprehension and fear. Yet the mystery of the tower only piques my interest further, and so I have made it my life's work to discover its secrets. What I can deduce from its past comes from its present. From the cut of the stone to the words that surround it, every piece is a clue, a signature that can be traced back to a pen and hand. The stone seal that guards the entrance is none other than the Eye of Magnus, a symbol born from the legacy of Shalador. Its burning gaze can be found not just in Myrwatch, but outside the College of Winterhold. Could it be the mages here were cast out from the college and set out to carve their own path? This is but a theory, and yet one I feel has merit. Nevertheless, without access to the mind of its occupants, true insight will remain frustratingly out of grasp. Hans's Journal. When the eye is doused in flame, the hair will light the way. I've heard that fool Sinnar say it over and over, breath stinking of ale as if it were a limerick. Given his dark hood, you might think it was a dangerous spell. But so long as no one's hair caught on fire, or they found imps in their cupboards, the words were harmless, just the mad ramblings of a drunk. Of the inn patrons, only I bothered to humor him. We bonded over a bottle of hunting brew and the bucket with which we had history. So when the elf bit the dust, it was only natural he left his things to me. Among them were countless pieces of junk, including full ownership of the bucket, and a spell tome written in some long-dead language. But as soon as I started cursing the old fool for willing me his trash, out slipped 2 items of value, a map and notes to the tower deep in the swamps. It was only after reading it that I realized his drunken words weren't part of any limerick. They were instructions, a way in. Now that I'm here, things are getting even more clear. The hair part still doesn't make a lick of sense, but the eye is the stone seal, that much I'm sure. Yet nothing I do seems to work. I've doused it in the fire from my torch, I've chopped kindling for hours and built a bonfire high enough to scorch the bloody moon. Still, nothing. Maybe the seal can only be broken with magic. Well, if that drunken fool can learn how to cast spells, so can I. I've got the bastard's tome, I'll just need to make sense of the words. But I better be quick. Fire seems to be attracting all sorts of creatures from the belly of this unholy marsh. Hopefully I can manage to survive long enough to discover what treasure lies within. Bounty Hunter's Note. I first met the Breton at Dead Man's Drink. Said it was poetic, given what was inside his bottle of wine. I ain't much for poetry myself. I wanted to know what it paid, and pay it did. I would have been okay with just gold, but he insisted I take his armor, too. Not sure why he'd want to give up something so valuable, but he said it would help sell the story. The dead man has no need for protection. I could have reminded him that he wasn't really dying, but you know what they say about a fool and his gold. So we shook hands, and he downed the drink. The next morning I rode into town with him as my bounty. And sure enough, they buried him in the cemetery just like he said they would. Back at the inn, I asked him if he needed me to dig him up. They said I didn't have to, someone else would. Legend of Crately House by Beloff Kuhl. Dramatis Personae, Theophan, Imperial Man, 24, thief. Nirim, Bosmer Man, 20, thief. Silenus Crately, Imperial Man, 51, merchant. Dominica Crately, his wife, 40. Elva Crately, their daughter, 16. Ministus Crately, their son, 11. Setting, the famous haunted Crately House in Shaden Hall, first and second floors, requiring a stage, the second story where most of the action takes place. Stage is dark. There is a creaking noise. Footsteps on the stairs, the sound of a man breathing, but still we see nothing. Then a voice calls from above. Elva. Hello? Is someone down there? Ministus. Should I wake up Papa? No. Maybe I was imagining it. A light from a lantern can be seen coming from the upstairs, and the slim form of the beautiful young girl, Elva, descends the staircase at stage right, nervously. From the light of the lantern, we can see that we're looking at the second floor of a dusty old house, with a set of stairs going up and another one going down to stage right. An unlit stone fireplace sits at stage left. A table, a locked chest, and a wardrobe complete the furnishings. Ministers. Elva, what are you doing? Elva. I'm just making certain. Go back to bed, Ministers. As the girl passes the table, we see a Bosmer Nirim slide gracefully up from behind and around her field of sight, carefully avoiding the pool of light. She doesn't appear to see him as he creeps closer to her, his footsteps silent on the hard wooden floors. When he's almost on her, there's a sudden crash from down below. This causes the Bosmer to leap away, hiding again behind the table. The girl does not seem to notice the sound, and Nirim, peeking out from behind the table, watches her. Ministers from off stage. Found anything? Elva. No, probably just my imagination, but I'm going to check downstairs. Is there a fire? I'm cold. Elva looks toward the long dead fireplace, and so does Nirim. Of course there is. Can't you hear it crackling? I guess so. Elva suddenly jumps as if she hears something which we do not. She turns her attention down the stairs to the first floor. Hello? Elva, lantern ahead of her, begins the descent. She does not seem to notice as an Imperial, Theophan, carrying a big bag of loot and a lantern of his own, calmly walks up right past her. Excuse me, young lady, just robbing you. Elva continues her slow, nervous walk downstairs, which we can now see, thanks to her light. She looks around the low-ceilinged, thoroughly looted room as the action continues upstairs. Theophan's lantern provides the dim light for the second floor. Why are you hiding, Nirim? I told you they can't see you, and they can't hear you. Nirim sheepishly steps out from behind the table. I can't believe they're all ghosts. They seem so alive. That's what spooks them, superstitions. But they ain't gonna hurt us. Just reliving the past the way ghosts do. The night they were murdered. Stop thinking about that or you'll get yourself all willy spooked. I got all kinds of stuff on the first floor. Silver candlesticks, silk, even some gold. What'd you get? Nirim holds up his empty bag. Sorry, Theophan, I was just about to stop. Get to work on that chest then. That's what you're here for. Oh, yeah. I got the talent. You got the ideas and the equipment. You refilled that lantern before we came here, right? I can't work in the dark. Don't worry, Nirim. I promise no surprises. Nirim jumps when the young boy, Ministus, appears on the stairs. The lad creeps down quietly and goes to the fire. He acts as if he's stoking the fire, feeding it wood, poking at the embers, though there is no wood, no poker, no fire. Theophan says, We got all the time in the world, friend. No one comes near this house. If they see our lantern light, they'll just assume it's the ghosts. Nirim begins picking the lock on the chest of drawers, while Theophan opens a wardrobe and begins going through the contents, which are mostly rotten with cloth. Nirim is distracted, looking at the young boy. Hey, Theophan, how long ago did they die? About 5 years. Why are you asking? Just making conversation. As they talk, Elva, downstairs finally, having searched the small room, acts as if she's locking the front door. Didn't I already tell you the story? No, you just said, hey, I know a place we can burgle where no one's at home except for the ghosts. I thought you were joking. No joking, partner. 5 years ago, the Crateleys lived here. Nice people. You see the daughter Elva and the boy Ministus. Parents were Silenus and Dominica, if I remember rightly. Nirim successfully unlocks the chest and begins rummaging through it. While he does so, Ministis gets up from the fire, apparently warmed up, and stands at the top of the stairs down. Ministis. Hey! The boy's voice calls Niram, Theophan, and Elva to all jump. Elva says, Why aren't you in bed? I'm just going to check the cellar. I'll wait for you. Niram asks, So what happened? Oh, they were ripped to pieces. Halfway eaten. No one ever knew what did it, neither, though there was rumors. Elva opens the door to the cellar and goes in. The light disappears from the first floor. Ministis patiently waits at the top of the stairs, humming a little song to himself. Niram asks, What kind of rumors? Theophan, having exhausted the possibilities of the wardrobe, helps Niram sort through the gold in the chest. Theophan says, Pretty good haul, eh? Oh, the rumors. Well, they say old lady Dominisha was a witch before she married Selenis. Gave it all up for him to be a good wife and mother. But the witches didn't take too kindly to it. They found her and sent some kind of creature here late at night. Something horrible, right out of a nightmare. Ministis says, Elva, what's taking you so long? Niram says, Ye gods, are we going to watch them get killed right in front of us? Ministis, Elva! Selenis, off stage. What's happening down there? Stop playing around, boy, and go to sleep. Ministis, Papa! Ministis, frightened, runs to the stairs up. Along the way, he bumps into Niram, who falls down. The boy does not seem to notice, but continues up to the dark third-floor sleeping porch off stage. Theophan, are you all right? Niram jumps to his feet, white-faced. Never mind that, he touched me. How could a ghost touch me? Theophan says, Well, of course they can. Some, anyhow. You heard of ancestor spirits guarding tombs and the ghost of the king they had in Daggerfall? If they don't touch you, what good are they? Why are you so surprised? You thought he'd move right through you, I figure. Well, yes! Selenis, the man of the house, comes down the stairs cautiously. Dominisha, off stage. Don't leave us alone, Selenis. We're coming with you. Selenis, saying, Wait. It's dark. Let me get some light. Selenis goes to the cold fireplace, sticks his hand forward, and suddenly in his arm there's a lit, burning torch. Niram scrambles back, horrified. I felt that. I felt the heat of the fire. Selenis says, Come on down. It's all right. Ministis leads his mother, Dominisha, down the stairs where they join Selenis. Theophan says, I don't know why you're so scared, Niram. I must say, I am disappointed. I didn't figure you for a superstitionalist. Theophan goes for the stairs up. Niram asks, Where are you going? One more floor to search. Can't we just go? Niram watches as the family of three, following Selenis and his torch, walk down toward the first floor. Selenis. Elva? Say something, Elva. Theophan. There, you see? If you don't like ghosts, third floor is the place to be. All four of them are downstairs now. Theophan goes upstairs, off stage, but Niram stands at the top of the stairs looking down at the family. The three look around the first floor as Elva did, finally turning toward the cellar door. Niram. All four? Selenis opens the cellar door. Selenis. Elva, what are you doing in the cellar, girl? Dominisha. You see her? Niram. All four, Theophan? Selenis. I think so. I see someone. Hello? Niram. What if there's 5 ghosts, Theophan? Selenis thrusts his torch in through the cellar door, and it's suddenly extinguished. The first floor falls into darkness. Ministis, Dominisha, and Selenis scream, but we cannot see what is happening to them. Niram is nearly hysterical, screaming along with them. Theophan runs downstairs from the 3rd floor. What is it? Niram says, What if there's 5 ghosts? The man, the wife, the girl, the boy, and what killed them? And what killed them? And what if it's a ghost that can touch us too, just like the others? On the darkened 1st floor there is a creak of a door opening, though we cannot see it. And then there is a heavy, clawed footfall, 1 step at a time, coming toward the stairs. Theophan says, Don't get so upset. If it can touch us, what would make you think it wants to? All the others didn't even notice we were here. Theophan's lantern dims slightly. He adjusts it carefully. Niram says, Only what if it ain't a ghost, Theophan? What if it's the same creature, and it's still alive, and it ain't nothing since 5 years ago? The footsteps begin the slow, heavy stomp up the stairs, though whatever it is, we cannot see it. Niram noticed the light begin to dim from the lantern, despite Theophan frantically trying to fix it. Niram, you said you refilled the lamp. The light goes out entirely, and the stage is filled with darkness. You promised me you refilled the lamp! More footsteps and a horrible, horrible howl. The men scream, and curtain falls. "36 Lessons of Vivek, Sermon 9. Then came the war with the northern men, where Vivek did guide the Hortator into swift and tricky union with the Dwemer. The greatest demon chieftains of the frigid west were those listed below, 5 in unholy number. Hoag, the mouth of mud, who appeared as a great bearded king, had the powers of marshalling and breathing the earth. On the battlefields this demon would often be seen in the sidelines, eating the soil voraciously. When his men fell, Hoaga would fill their bodies back with it, whereupon they would rise again and fight, albeit slower. He had a secret name, Penja, and destroyed 17 Chimeri villages and 2 Dwemeri strongholds before being turned away. Chimua, the running hunger, who appears as a mounted soldier with full helm, had the powers of heart-roaring and of sky-sickening. He ate the Chimera hero, Dres Kumutsute, sending the spirit back to the Hortator as an assassin. Sometimes called First Blighter, Chimua could give clouds stomach aches and turn the reign of Veloth into bile. He destroyed 6 Chimeri villages before he was slain by Vivek and the Hortator. Bag, the two-tongued, who had appeared as a great bearded king, had the powers of surety and form change. His raiders were small in number, but ran amok in the west hinterlands, killing many Velothi trappers and scouts. He fell in a great debate with Vivek, for the warrior poet alone could understand the northern man's 2-layered speech, though Amsivi had to remain invisible during the argument. Barfak, made of plains, who appeared as a winged human with lick-encrusted spear, had the powers of event denouement. Battles fought against her would always end in victory for Barfak because she could shape outcomes by singing. 4 Chimeri villages and 2 more Dwemeri strongholds were destroyed by her decision enforcement. Vivek had to stuff her mouth with his milk finger to keep her from singing Veloth into ruin. Ismir, the dragon of the north, who always appears as a great bearded king, had powers innumerable and echoing. He was grim and dark and the most silent of the invading chieftains, though when he spoke villages were uplifted and thrown into the sea. The Hortator fought him unarmed, grabbing the dragon's roars by hand until Ismir's power throat bled. These roars were given to Vivek to bind into an ebony listening frame, which the warrior poet placed on Ismir's face and ears to drive him mad and drive him away. The coming forth and the driving away brings all things around. What I shall say next is unpleasant to record. Herma mora altidon I altidon. The ending of the words is Amsivi. Honora's Journal, 1st of Morningstar, 4E 423. A wise mage once told me the power of a spell lies in one's conviction. It's evident to me now that the college has lost all desire and purpose and has become feckless under its current stewardship. The Archmage Shalador believes the halls to be a proving ground where a mage could test the limits of their abilities. Now the college is a tomb of knowledge where grand spells and lofty ideas are left to wither and rot. We should not let the outside world dictate how we conduct ourselves. Placating their ignorance is not a virtue. The augurs speak of a great war on the horizon, and we should be doing everything in our power to prepare for it. That is why Tilja and I have chosen to leave. We know the road ahead will be hard, but one thing we do not lack is the conviction to see it through. 23rd of Rain's Hand, 4E 428. Construction of the tower is almost complete. Tilja accused me of being impatient, a crime which I have been guilty of more often than not. Between us he has always been the tortoise and I the hare. Still, our needs are pressing. The coming war will not wait for the mortar to dry. The location has much to do with the delays, but that can't be helped. The Nords are distrustful of magic by nature, and some would frown upon our efforts. Others might take a more violent approach. For that reason, we've put a ward on the door that requires magic to dispel. We've chosen to honor Shalador in much of what we do, including the seal outside the door. Tilja seemed pleased with the idea of setting it on fire, while others seemed uncomfortable with the idea. I warned them that pride is the enemy of progress. If we are to survive in the coming storm, we must not be bound by tradition. We must be willing to set it aflame. 11th of First Seed 3E 429. It's been a year since construction has finished, yet there's still much that needs to be done. The tower is only the foundation for our defense. Our minds and our magic must serve as its ramparts, and for them to hold, we must amplify our strength. As such, I have sent scouts through Tamriel to find powerful artifacts that may help us in our efforts, artifacts the college wizards refuse to obtain out of cowardice or comfort. Many of these relics played a role in preventing calamities of the past. Perhaps it is their destiny as much as ours to stand between the world and its ruin. 17th of Frostfall 3E 429. We've had little luck finding artifacts of note. Based on the information I've culled from the Arcanium records, I know there are several here in Skyrim, including the staff of Galdur. We must endeavor to find them all. More concerning, however, is the disposition and morale of the mages. Even Tilja seems to have fallen into the trappings of routine and idleness. It is hard to convince weary souls to explore yet another ruin when the task has been stripped of all urgency. 29th of Sun's Height 3E 433. It's now halfway through the year 433, more than 10 years since we left the college, yet all remains blissfully calm. One of the new acolytes even suggests abandoning her training to become a cook, happily showing me her spell for preserving apple pies. I reminded her that she is here to study battle magic, not pastries. She will have more than enough time to indulge her sweet tooth when her youth is behind her. It is why we've devoted half the library to the placement of powerful artifacts, to serve as a reminder of our pursuit. Yet, seeing the racks as they are now, collecting only dust, makes me wonder if I've led us all astray. As leader of this guild, I have the training to fight, and the knowledge of what's to come. What I don't have, sadly, is the conviction that it will. 28th of Last Seed 3E 433. A courier came by with news from Cyrodiil. Emperor Septim is dead. The gates of oblivion have opened. Divines, help us all.
Olaf and the Dragon by Adonato Liatelli. An historian ponders the legend of Olaf One-Eye and Numenex. One of the more colorful legends in Nord folklore is the tale of Olaf One-Eye and Numenex. Long ago, in the First Age, a fearsome dragon named Numenex ravaged the whole of Skyrim. The dreadful drake wiped out entire villages, burned cities, and killed countless Nords. It seemed that no power in Tamriel could stop the monster. This was a troubled time in Skyrim's history, for a bitter war of succession raged between the holds. The Jarls might have been able to conquer the beast if they had worked together, but trust was in desperately short supply. A skillful warrior named Olaf came forward and promised to defeat the beast. In some accounts, he is the Jarl of Whiterun. In other versions of the legend, Olaf promises the people of Whiterun that he will capture the monster if they will name him Jarl. At any rate, Olaf ventures forth with a handful of his most trusted warriors and seeks the beast out, eventually finding Numenex in his lair atop Mount Aethor. Needless to say, it's an epic battle. First, Olaf comes at the dragon with his axe and his shield. Some variants of the legend say that Olaf and the beast battled with blade and claw for days, but were too evenly matched for either to gain an advantage. Most accounts hold that Olaf, perhaps frustrated that his weapons were completely ineffectual against the dragon, finally cast them aside. Giving voice to the rage that has been building within him, Olaf unleashes a terrible shout. Here again, the stories diverge. Many accounts hold that Olaf did not realize he possessed the power of dragon speech, while others suggest that he had long possessed this gift, but wished to test himself against the dragon in martial combat first. Virtually all variations of the legend, however, agree on what happened next. Using the awesome powers of the dragon language, Numenex and Olaf engage in an epic shouting duel atop Mount Aethor. So forceful are their words, they are said to shatter the stone and split the sky. Finally, Numenex collapses from a combination of injury and sheer exhaustion. Somehow, and this detail is conspicuously absent in virtually every account, Olaf manages to convey the dragon all the way back to the capital city of Whiterun. The people of Whiterun are suitably impressed with Olaf's hostage. They build a huge stone holding cell at the rear of the palace, which they rename Dragon's Reach. This enormous cell serves as Numenex's prison until his death. Olaf himself eventually becomes the High King of Skyrim, putting an end to the War of Succession. Presumably, his great deed made him the only leader upon whom all the people could agree, and so the land once again has peace. As a visitor to Skyrim, I find this tale both fascinating and highly entertaining. It is one of the most celebrated legends of the Nords, and one can easily understand why. It's a story of surpassing heroism in which a resourceful and worthy Nord does battle with a truly terrifying adversary and emerges victorious by yelling him into submission. The only way in which this could have been even more of a Nordic tale would be if Olaf beat Numenex in a drinking contest. The legend is not without its doubters, however. The bard Svafnir, who lived during Olaf's reign, wrote and performed an alliterative verse that challenged Olaf's version of events. Enraged, the High King threw the rebellious bard in prison and destroyed all written copies of the verse. How I would love to lay hands on a copy of that verse. I admit I am immensely curious to know what assertions Svafnir made about how Olaf really defeated Numenex. There are a few ancient bard texts that provide one possible answer. These tomes suggest that Numenex was particularly foul-tempered because he was extremely old. In these accounts, the dragon spends his final years terrorizing the countryside before flying off to the top of Mount Aethor to die in peace. When Olaf finds Numenex, the dragon is too weak to defend himself. Olaf and his men capture the beast without effort, but decide to take advantage of the situation by fabricating a heroic tale. It is worth noting that all of Olaf's warriors who were said to witness the shout duel went on to become wealthy leaders during Olaf's reign as High King. However, it is equally likely that Svafnir had some grudge against Olaf, and his scandalous verse was an attempt to damage the High King's reputation. Alas, we will never know. I leave you now, good reader, with this gentle reminder. A good historian must remain impartial and consider all points of view. Time has a way of distorting our record of events, so the closer you can get to the original sources, the better. Shadow Marks by Delvin Mallor. A list of symbols members of the Thieves Guild leave behind for each other. Need to know your way around, eh? Don't want to stumble into a necromancer's house or fall into another trap set up by the city guard? Then you need to read this book from cover to cover. Learning to identify the shadow mark can mean the difference between making a fortune and ending up with a blade in your gut. The clever little marks are carved all over Skyrim, mostly on the door frames or fronts of buildings, but you can find them pretty much anywhere a thief's been. It's the way we talk to each other without talking. Keeps the newer thieves from becoming dead thieves and all that nonsense. There aren't that many of the bloody things, so I don't want to hear any excuses about not having the time to learn them. Anyway, enough of my gabbing. Time to put on your wizard's cap and do a little research. Glossary of Shadow Marks. The Guild. This is the symbol for the Guild. This means the place is as safe as the Flagon's cistern. If you see this shadow mark, someone from the Guild is nearby for certain. Safe. We usually leave this shadow mark when we've scouted and found a safe way around something. A hallway without traps, or maybe a house that's already cleared out. If you see one of these, head the way it's pointing and you'll be fine. Danger. If you see this shadow mark, head the other way or take your life in your own hands. It means there's something ahead or beyond that door that wants to turn you inside out. Escape route. Now, on the rare occasion, it better be a rare occasion if you want to work in the Guild, that you find yourself in jail, look for this little beauty. You see this shadow mark and escape is just a few steps away. Protected. We put these shadow marks on places we don't want you to go. As in, stay out of there, or there's going to be a boot up the backside. These people are under the Guild's protection and should never be robbed or assaulted. Fence. This should quickly become your favorite shadow mark. The person near this mark will buy your hard-earned stolen goods for a fair price. Thieves' cash. Who says we only take and never give back? If you find this shadow mark near a chest or maybe a hollowed log, you're in for a surprise. A gift from the Guild for the thief in the field. Whoever said membership didn't have its privileges? Loot. There's something near this shadow mark worth stealing. Saves you from breaking into a place only to find that people don't even have two septums to rub together. Empty. The opposite of the loot shadow mark. Pass on this place. There's nothing inside. The Five Far Stars by Zershishu Musmanu, Ashlander Poetry. This is a volume of verse collected from wise women of the Urshilaku Ashlanders. It consists of verses composed by Ashlander warriors, champions, and Ashkans, committed to memory by the wise women and transmitted down the generations. May I Shrink to Dust is attributed to the long-dead poet and warrior Zershishu Musmanu. Rise from darkness, Red Mountain. Spread your dark clouds and green vapors. Birth earthquakes, shatter stones. Feed the winds with fire. Flay the tents of the tribes from the land. Feed the burned earth with our souls. Yet never shall you have your rule over me. Never shall I tremble or flinch from your power. Never shall I yield my home and hearth, and from my tears shall spring forth the flowers of grassland springs.
What's on your mind?
I have a book you might like.
Looks like a good read. Here, fair trade?
Can we trade some things?
Take what you need, darling.
Let's rest here.
Feels like it's the first time I've been able to relax all day. Aye.
I'm going to get some rest.
Want some company?
You look tired too. Why not join me?
Every time we are alone, I want to do things that, well...
What things, Kaiden? I might just let you.
Well, let's go into the bedroom. I'll make your toes curl, alright?
Sleep wasn't what I was thinking of.
Are you blushing, Dragonborn? Let's see how long we can keep that up. It's so nice to be home with the kids. This is my favourite part of the day. These dead bodies make for poor company. We need to take care of this. There's something near. Stay close to me.
Fucking come on then!
I don't like this place. There's a sense of evil about this place. There's just no bloody end to us, is there? You can fuck right off.
I'll be fine.
Take you! Where we don't know. I do what I do, and if you don't like it, tough. Gonna like how this ends. Worse, I suppose.
Writ of Sealing. A writ for the sealing away of Sigdus Galderson. Be bound here, Sigdus, murderer, betrayer, condemned by your crimes against realm and lord. May your name and your deeds be forgotten forever, and the charm which you bear be sealed by our ward. Ancient Edict. An edict placed in honor of those who fell because of Galdur's sons. Let this place be forgotten forever. Let it be struck from the rolls of history. Let it never be spoken of by man or Myr. Let its very name be lost to the ages. Ye who enter here know, this place was sealed at great price. Honor those who perished here. Turn back, and leave them to their rest.
The gods have forsaken this place.
I'll just be back here enjoying the view. Show me what you got!
Fight. Watch. Know what I mean? Bit of both, methinks.
still sore where I took that arrow. Why is this a surprise?
Over here!
Bring it on! Fall into my blade!
Your best?
Can't wait to count out your coin!
Good bloody job.
You made it. And you brought the shards.
Yes, I have them. What now?
Look at the device here. The gear in the center is just about the right size. Try putting the shards in, and we'll see what happens.
I like the rift better than anywhere in Skyrim. Cold forests and the broken mountains. It always felt familiar somehow.
Try taking it out? What the? Get back! Hurry! It's true. It's all true. Come on, let's check it out.
Ah, well, shit happens.
That took longer than usual. How deep are we? Amazing.
I'm actually curious to see this Aetherium Forge. I can't imagine what items you could make.
No one's been here in 4,000 years. Door's shut tight. I bet those resonators would open it, though. The air here, it feels different. Almost can't believe it. We did it. We actually did it. There's only one thing left to do. We have to prove this actually works, that this is the real Aetherium Forge.
How do we do that?
By forging something, of course. Go ahead. After everything you've done, you should do the honors.
Forge something? With what?
There isn't any Aetherium here, is there? Damn it. Wait. Yes, there is. The shards we collected. They're pure Aetherium, remember? It's not much, but it'll do. With them and the materials in this room, we should have everything we need.
Do you think there's more Aetherium somewhere?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. After all these years, it's a miracle even this much survived. Make it count. This may be the only chance we ever get to use the Forge.
Just trying to imagine how it was.
Beautiful. That crown. It's everything I could have hoped for. And with that, it's done. No one could possibly deny what we found now.
What now?
For me, I've done what I set out to do. But you, take that out into the world, and if anyone asks, tell them what we discovered, together.
Congratulations, and thanks, Katria.
I've waited so long for this moment. We found it, at last. And now, I think I can rest. Farewell, my friend, wherever your travels take you.
Hey, sweetheart.
I'm behind you.
This place looks shady as fuck.
Professor Morales, just to la torre.
This one doesn't know much about this. Just keeps it
I
simple.
can't say that I'm much of an expert on art.
Not gonna lie.
My scholarly expertise specializes in history
All right.
and ancient
Let's see
magic.
what we have next.
But I do certainly appreciate a thing of beauty when I see it. Like with you,
Oh.
young lady. I hear you are eagerly pursuing a career as a painter.
Don't
Oh,
worry.
yes.
I cleaned it
I
up.
love to paint all the great palaces across High Rock, and the fancy temples of Alinor, or maybe one day the Imperial City itself.
Most ambitious. You are quite lucky to have such a devoted father who helps to
Lot of
foster such
history
desires. Make sure you work hard and make him proud.
She certainly does that much already.
I will, sir. Absolutely.
Very good. And who knows, one day when you are famous, you might have a painting or two hanging in this very museum.
Now wouldn't that be exciting?
It's not that bad.
Oh my stars, it would. I can't wait to start my next painting. That reminds me, I'm running low on blue again, Papa.
That looks fabulous.
Again? Oh my. I sense another shift down at Catla's in my future.
How can I help?
Excellent work.
What can you tell me about this?
Interesting. It looks like a broken ruby of some kind. No, not a ruby, but rather... Oh my. This couldn't possibly, could it? I believe this may be a shard of the Amulet of Kings. At the end of the Oblivion Crisis, Martin Septim sacrificed himself to banish Mehrunes Dagon and seal the gates, which shattered the amulet in the process, breaking the covenant with Akatosh. There were reportedly 5 shards, which have been safeguarded by the Imperial cult, but after the invasion of the White Gold Tower and the White Gold Concordant, they were lost. They have been rumored to pass between Guardians, who would protect them until a means of supposedly reforming the amulet is found. Apparently someone associated with the Daedra are seeking these fragments. I'll do some research and let you know when I turn up.
Garamond's Epitaph. Lord Garamond, Archmage of Windhelm, Lord Battlemage to King Harold. Magus, keep thy vigil eternal. Serve now in death as you did in life. By these seals our realm preserve, from traitors 3 and their charm of strife.
Iliad inscriptions and their translations. Virelis Anina. Following inscriptions were painstakingly transcribed and interpreted over many long years and are preserved here for all time. Av Molag Anyanis, Av Lata Magica. From fire, light. From light, magic. Bara Aja Risukaran. Wear lore as your armor. Agia Helea Nos Joran Emera Laloria. Wisdom learned by pain is a reliable guide in dark times. Literally, terrible wisdom never betrayed the lore masters. No admeris mathmaldi admari oran gandra supredia verelis ibredielis yeverli. Our exiled elven ancestors heard the welcoming gifts of peace in the streams and beech trees and stars. Mathmaldi means literally from home driven. Suna Yosunabe, bless and blessed be. Vagarla Sigia Gravia Igoria Latia Marla ad Malatum. In the caverns of lore, ugly and obscure, shines the gold of truth. Vabria Fredska Sabella Sabana Amarande Alberis Adonai. The foaming wave, so thunderous, so mighty, heralds the lordly elves. Followers of the Grey Fox, detailing the principles and guidelines of membership in the Thieves' Guild. We are the fingers of the fox, the children of the shadows. More commonly, we are known as the Thieves' Guild. There are but 3 rules for followers of the Grey Fox. First, never steal from another member of the guild. Second, never kill anyone on the job. This is not the Dark Brotherhood. Animals and monsters can be slain if necessary. Third, don't steal from the poor. The peasants and beggars are under the personal protection of the Grey Fox, particularly in the Imperial City waterfront. Breaking any of the 3 rules means expulsion from the Thieves' Guild. If you commit murder, you must pay the blood price to rejoin the guild. Blood price for each person slain. You can pay any of the guild doyen. The doyen are the hands and eyes of the guildmaster. You take your orders from them. You get your favors from them. They can pay off the imperial judges to remove your crimes. For a small fee, of course. Our guildmaster is the Grey Fox. We don't talk about him in public. However, we make sure that most folk think he's just a myth. We're thieves, not masons or scribes. Each member steals at his own discretion. The guild neither helps nor hinders with the burglary. However, you will find that you can only sell stolen property to one of our guild fences. Other merchants won't take hot merchandise. You won't be considered for promotion in the Thieves' Guild unless you have sold enough stolen property to the fences. The higher in the guild you rise, the more stolen property you need to have fenced. If you should be called to help the Grey Fox in some special way, remember that the best source of information is the beggars. Their eyes and ears seem to be everywhere. However, be prepared to spend a little coin. It won't tell you anything for free. At least not anything true. The guild takes care of its own. The doyen can remove the bounty from any guild member. However, it takes money to bribe the guards. The guild member must pay the doyen half of his total fines to get rid of them.
A Dance in Fire, Chapter 1, by Joaquin Yarth. Chapter 1 of A Clerk's Adventures in Valenwood. Scene: the Imperial City, Cyrodiil. Date: 7 Frostfall, 3rd Era 397. It seemed as if the palace had always housed the Aetherium Building Commission, a company of clerks and estate agents who authored and notarized nearly every construction of any note in the Empire. It had stood for 250 years, since the reign of the Emperor Magnus, a plain-fronted and austere hall on a minor but respectable plaza in the Imperial City. Energetic and ambitious middle-class lads and ladies worked there, as well as complacent, middle-aged ones like Decimus Scotti. No one could imagine a world without the Commission, least of all Scotti. To be accurate, he could not imagine a world without himself in the Commission. Lord Aetherium is perfectly aware of your contributions, said the managing clerk, closing the shutter that demarcated Scotty's office behind him. But you know that things have been difficult. Yes, said Scotty stiffly. Lord Vannick's men have been giving us a lot of competition lately, and we must be more efficient if we are to survive. Unfortunately, that means releasing some of our historically best but presently underachieving senior clerks. I understand. Can't be helped. I'm glad you understand, smiled the managing clerk, smiling thinly and withdrawing. Please have your room cleared immediately. Scotty began the task of organizing all his work to pass on to his successor. It would probably be young Imbralius who would take most of it on, which was as it should be, he considered philosophically. The lad knew how to find business, and Scotty wondered idly what the fellow would do with the contracts for the new statue of St. Alicia for which the Temple of One had applied. Probably invent a clerical error, blame it on his old predecessor Decimus Scotti, and require an additional cost to rectify. I have correspondence for Decimus Scotti of the Aetherium Building Commission. Scotti looked up. A fat-faced courier had entered his office and was thrusting forth the sealed scroll. He handed the boy a gold piece and opened it up. By the poor penmanship, atrocious spelling and grammar, and overall unprofessional tone, it was manifestly evident who the writer was. Leodes Eurus, a fellow clerk some years before, who had left the commission after being accused of unethical business practices. Dear Scotty, I imagine you always wondered what happened to me, and the last place you would have expected to find me is out in the woods. But that's exactly where I am. Ha ha! If you're smart and want to make a lot of extra gold for Lord Aetherium, and yourself, ha ha, you'll come down to Valenwood too. If you haven't, or have been following the politics here lately, you may or may not know that there's been a war between the Boschmer and their neighbors elsewhere over the past 2 years. Things have only just calmed down, and there's a lot that needs to be rebuilt. Now I've got more business than I can handle, but I need someone with some clout, someone representing a respected agency to get the quill and the ink. That someone is you, my friend. Come and meet me at the Mother Pascos Tavern in Falinesti, Valenwood. I'll be there 2 weeks, and you won't be sorry. Eurus. P.S. Bring a wagon load of timber if you can. What do you have there, Scotty? Asked a voice. Scotty startled. It was Imbralius, his damnably handsome face peeking through the shutters, smiling in that way that melted the hearts of the stingiest of patrons and the roughest of stonemasons. Scotty shoved the letter in his jacket pocket. Personal correspondence, he sniffed. I'll be cleared up here in just a moment. I don't want to hurry you, said Imbralius, grabbing a few sheets of blank contracts from Scotty's desk. I've just gone through a stack, and the junior scribe's hands are all cramping up, so I thought you wouldn't miss a few. The lad vanished. Scotty retrieved the letter and read it again. He thought about his life, something he rarely did. It seemed a sea of gray with a black, insurmountable wall looming. But there was only one narrow passage he could see in the wall. Quickly, before he had a moment to reconsider it, he grabbed a dozen of the blank contracts with the shimmering gold leaf Aetherium Building Commission by appointment of His Imperial Majesty, and hid them in the satchel with his personal effects. The next day he began his adventure with a giddy lack of hesitation. He arranged for a seat in a caravan bound for Valenwood, the single escorted conveyance of the southeast leaving the Imperial City that week. He had scarcely hours to pack, but he remembered to purchase a wagon load of timber. It will be extra gold to pay for a horse to pull that, frowned the convoy head. So I anticipated, smiled Scotty with his best Imbralius grin. 10 wagons in all set off that afternoon through the familiar Cyrodiilic countryside, past fields of wildflowers, gently rolling woodlands, and friendly hamlets. The clop of the horses' hooves against the sound stone road reminded Scotty that the Aetherium Building Commission constructed it. 5 of the 18 necessary contracts for its completion were drafted by his own hand. Very smart of you to bring that wood along, said a grey-whiskered Breton man next to him on his wagon. You must be in commerce. Of a sort, said Scotty, in a way he hoped was mysterious, before introducing himself. Decimus Scotty. Griff Malin, said the man. I'm a poet, actually a translator of Old Bosmer literature. I was researching some newly discovered tracts of the Minoriad play bar 2 years ago, when the war broke out and I had to leave. You are no doubt familiar with the Minoriad, if you are aware of the Green Pact. Scotty thought the man might be speaking perfect gibberish, but he nodded his head. Naturally, I don't pretend that the Minoriad is as renowned as the Me Eliadion, or as ancient as the Dancier Gaul, but I think it has a remarkable significance to understanding the nature of the Merilithic Bosmer mind. The origin of the Wood Elf aversion to cutting their own wood, or eating any plant material at all, yet paradoxically, their willingness to import plant stuff from other cultures, I feel can be linked to a passage in the Minoriad. Malin shuffled through some of his papers, searching for the appropriate text. To Scotty's vast relief, the carriage soon stopped to camp for the night. They were high on a bluff over a grey stream, and before them was the great valley of Valenwood. Only the cry of seabirds declared the presence of the ocean to the bay to the west. Here the timber was so tall and wide, twisting around itself like an impossible knot begun eons ago, as to be impenetrable. A few more modest trees, only 50 feet to the lowest branches, stood on the cliff at the edge of the camp. The sight was so alien to Scotty, and he found himself so anxious about the proposition of entering the wilderness, that he could not imagine sleeping. Fortunately, Malin had supposed he had found another academic with a passion for the riddles of ancient cultures. Long into the night, he recited Bosmer verse in the original and his own translation, sobbing and bellowing and whispering whenever appropriate. Gradually, Scotty began to feel drowsy, but a sudden crack of wood snapping made him sit straight up. What was that? Malin smiled. I like it too. Convocation in the malignity of the moonless speculum, a dance of fire. There are some enormous birds up in the trees moving around, whispered Scotty, pointing in the direction of the dark shapes above. I wouldn't worry about that, said Malin, irritated with his audience. Now, listen to how the poet characterizes Herma Mora's invocation in the 18th stanza of the 4th book. The dark shapes in the trees were some of them perched like birds, others slithered like snakes, and still others stood up straight like men. As Malin recited his verse, Scotty watched the figures softly leap from branch to branch, half gliding across impossible distances for anything without wings. They gathered in groups, and then reorganized until they had spread to every tree around the camp. Suddenly, they plummeted from the heights. Mara, cried Scotty. They're falling like rain. Probably seed pods, Malin shrugged, not turning around. Some of the trees have remarkable... The camp erupted into chaos. Fires burst out in the wagons. The horses wailed from mortal blows. Casks of wine, fresh water, and liquor gushed their contents onto the ground. A nimble shadow dashed past Scotty and Malin, gathering sacks of grain and gold with impossible agility and grace. Scotty had only one glance at it, lit up by a sudden nearby burst of flame. It was a sleek creature, with pointed ears, wide yellow eyes, mottled pied fur, and a tail like a whip. Werewolf, he whimpered, shrinking back. Cathay rat, groaned Malin. Much worse. Khajiiti cousins or some such thing, come to plunder. Are you sure? As quickly as they struck, the creatures retreated, diving off the bluff before the battle mage and knight, the caravan's escorts, had fully opened their eyes. Malin and Scotty ran to the precipice and saw 100 feet below the tiny figures dash out of the water, shake themselves, and disappear into the wood. Werewolves aren't acrobats like that, said Malin. They were definitely Cathay rat. Bastard thieves. Thanks Stendar, they didn't realize the value of my notebooks. It wasn't a complete loss. A Dance in Fire, Chapter 2, by Wageen Yarth. Chapter 2 of a clerk's adventures in Valenwood. It was a complete loss. The Cathay rat had stolen or destroyed almost every item of value in the caravan in just a few minutes' time. Decimus Scotty's wagon load of wood he had hoped to trade with the Bosmer had been set on fire and then toppled off the bluff. His clothing and contracts were tattered and ground into the mud of dirt mixed with spilt wine. All the pilgrims, merchants, and adventurers in the group moaned and wept as they gathered the remnants of their belongings by the rising sun of the dawn. I best not tell anyone that I managed to hold on to my notes for my translation of the Minoriad play bar, whispered the poet Griff Malin. They'd probably turn on me. Scotty politely declined the opportunity of telling Malin just how little value he himself placed on the man's property. Instead, he counted the coins in his purse. 34 gold pieces. Very little indeed for an entrepreneur beginning a new business. "Hoy!" came a cry from the wood. A small party of Bosmer emerged from the thicket, clad in leather mail and bearing arms. "Friend or foe?" "Neither," growled the convoy head. "You must be the Cyrodiils," laughed the leader of the group, a tall, skeleton-thin youth with a sharp, vulpine face. "We heard you were en route. Evidently, so did our enemies." "I thought the war was over," muttered one of the caravan's now ruined merchants. The Bosmer laughed again. "No active war, just a little border enterprise. You are going on to Falinesti?" "I'm not." The convoy head shook his head. "As far as I'm concerned, my duty is done. No more horses, no more caravan. Just a fat profit loss to me." The men and women crowded around the man, protesting, threatening, begging, but he refused to step foot in Valenwood. If these were the new times of peace, he said, he'd rather come back for the next war. Scotty tried a different route and approached the Bosmer. He spoke with an authoritative but friendly voice, the kind he used in negotiations with peevish carpenters. "I don't suppose you'd consider escorting me to Falinesti. I'm a representative for an important Imperial agency, the Aetherium Building Commission, here to help repair and alleviate some of the problems the war with the Gajiti brought to your province. Patriotism, 20 gold pieces, and you must carry your own gear if you have any left," replied the Bosmer. Scotty reflected that negotiations with peevish carpenters rarely went his way either. 6 eager people had enough gold on them for payment. Among those without funds was the poet, who appealed to Scotty for assistance. "I'm sorry, Griff. I only have 14 gold left over. Not even enough for a decent room when I get to Falinesti. I really would help you if I could," said Scotty, persuading himself that it was true. The band of 6 and their Bosmer escorts began the descent down a rocky path along the bluff. Within an hour's time, they were deep in the jungles of Valenwood. A never-ending canopy of hues of browns and greens obscured the sky. A millennia's worth of fallen leaves formed a deep, wormy sea of putrefaction beneath their feet. Several miles were crossed wading through the slime. For several more, they took a labyrinthian path across fallen branches and the low-hanging boughs of giant trees. All the while, hour after hour, the inexhaustible Bosmer host moved so fast the Cyrodiils struggled to keep from being left behind. A red-faced little merchant with short legs took a bad step on a rotten branch and nearly fell. His fellow provincials had to help him up. The Bosmer paused only a moment, their eyes continually darting to the shadows in the trees above before moving on at their unusual expeditious pace. What are they so nervous about?" wheezed the merchant irritably. "More Kathirat?" "Don't be ridiculous," laughed the Bosmer unconvincingly. "Khajiiti this far into Valenwood? In times of peace? They'd never dare." When the group passed high enough above the swamp that the smell was somewhat dissipated, Scotty felt a sudden pang of hunger. He was used to 4 meals a day in the Cyrodiilic custom. Hours of non-stop exertion without food was not part of his regiment as a comfortably paid clerk. He pondered, feeling somewhat delirious, how long they had been trotting through the jungle. 12 hours? 20? A week? Time was meaningless. Sunlight was only sporadic through the vegetative ceiling. Phosphorescent molds on the trees and in the muck below provided the only regular illumination. "Isn't it all possible for us to rest and eat?" he hollered to his host up ahead. "We're near to Falinesti," came the echoing reply. "Lots of food there." The path continued upward for several hours more, across a clot of fallen logs, rising up to the first and then the second boughs of the tree line. As they rounded a long corner, the travelers found themselves midway up a waterfall that fell 100 feet or more below. No one had the energy to complain as they began pulling up the stacks of rocks, agonizing foot by foot. The Bosmer escorts disappeared into the mist, but Scotty kept climbing until there was no more rock left. He wiped the sweat and river water from his eyes. Falinesti spread across the horizon before him. Sprawling across both banks of the river stood the mighty Grothoak city, with groves and orchards of lesser trees crowding it like supplicants before their king. At a lesser scale, the tree that formed the moving city would have been extraordinary, gnarled and twisted with a gorgeous crown of gold and green, dripping with vines and shining with sap. At a mile tall and half as wide, it was the most magnificent thing Scotty had ever seen. If he had not been a starving man with the soul of a clerk, he would have sung. "There you are," said the leader of the escorts. "Not too far a walk. You should be glad it's wintertide. In summertide, the city's on the far south end of the province." Scotty was lost as to how to proceed. The sight of the vertical metropolis, where people moved about like ants, disoriented all of his sensibilities. "You would know of an inn called..." He paused for a moment, and then pulled Eurus's letter from his pocket. "Something like Mother Pascoe's Tavern?" Mother Pascost, the lead Bosmer laughed his familiar contemptuous laugh. You won't want to stay there. Visitors always prefer Aesha Hall in the top bows. It's expensive, but very nice. I'm meeting someone at Mother Pascost's tavern. If you've made up your mind to go, take a lift to Havel's Slump and ask for directions there. Just don't get lost and fall asleep in the Western Cross. This apparently struck the youth's friends as a very witty jest, and so it was with their laughter echoing behind him that Scotty crossed the writhing root system to the base of Falinesti. The ground was littered with leaves and refuse, and from moment to moment a glass or a bone would plummet from far above, so he walked with his neck crooked to have warning. An intricate network of platforms anchored to thick vines slipped up and down the slick trunk of the city with perfect grace, manned by operators with arms as thick as an ox's belly. Scotty approached the nearest fellow at one of the platforms, who was idly smoking from a glass pipe. I was wondering if you might take me to Havel's Slum. The Myr nodded, and within a few minutes' time, Scotty was 200 feet in the air at a crook between two mighty branches. Curled webs of moss stretched unevenly across the fork, forming a sharing roof for several dozen small buildings. There were only a few souls in the valley, but around the bend ahead he could hear the sound of music and people. Scotty tipped the Falinesti platform ferryman a gold piece and asked for the location of Mother Pascost's tavern. Straight ahead of you, sir, but you won't find anyone there, the ferryman explained, pointing in the direction of the noise. Morndas, everyone in Havel's Slump has revelry. Scotty walked carefully along the narrow street. Though the ground felt as solid as the marble avenues of the imperial city, there were slick cracks in the bark that exposed fatal drops into the river. He took a moment to sit down, to rest, and get used to the view from the heights. It was a beautiful day for certain, but it took Scotty only a few minutes of contemplation to rise up in alarm. A jolly little raft, anchored downstream below him, had distinctly moved several inches while he watched it. But it hadn't moved at all. He had, together with everything around him. It was no metaphor. The city of Falinesti walked, and considering its size, it moved quickly. Scotty rose to his feet and into a cloud of smoke that drifted out from around the bend. It was the most delicious roast he had ever smelled. The clerk forgot his fear and ran. The revelry, as the ferryman had termed it, took place on an enormous platform tied to the tree, wide enough to be a plaza in any other city. A fantastic assortment of the most amazing people Scotty had ever seen were jammed shoulder to shoulder together, many eating, many more drinking, and some dancing to a lutist and singer perched on an offshoot above the crowd. They were largely Bosmer, true natives clad in colorful leather and bones, with a close minority of orcs. Whirling through the throng, dancing and bellowing at one another, were a hideous ape people. A few heads bobbing over the tops of the crowd belonged not, as Scotty first assumed, to very tall people, but to a family of centaurs. Care for some mutton? Queried a wizened old Myr, who roasted an enormous beast on some red-hot rocks. Scotty quickly paid him a gold piece and devoured the leg he was given, and then another gold piece and another leg. The fellow chuckled when Scotty began choking on a piece of gristle, and handed him a mug of frothing white drink. He drank it and felt a quiver run through his body, as if he were being tickled. What is that? Scotty asked. Yaga, fermented pig's milk. I can let you have a flagon of it and a bit more mutton for another gold. Scotty agreed, paid, gobbled down the meat, and took the flagon with him as he slipped into the crowd. His co-worker, Liodes Eurus, the man who had told him to come to Valenwood, was nowhere to be seen. When the flagon was a quarter empty, Scotty stopped looking for Eurus. When it was half empty, he was dancing with the group, oblivious to the broken planks and gaps in the fencework. At 3/4 empty, he was trading jokes with a group of creatures whose language was completely alien to him. By the time the flagon was completely drained, he was asleep and snoring, while the revelry continued on all around his supine body. The next morning, still asleep, Scotty had the sensation of someone kissing him. He made a face to return the favor, but a pain like fire spread through his chest and forced him to open his eyes. There was an insect the size of a large calf sitting on him, crushing him, its spiky legs holding him down, while a central, spiral-bladed vortex of a mouth tore through his shirt. He screamed and thrashed, but the beast was too strong. It had found its meal and was going to finish it. It's over, thought Scotty wildly. I should have never left home. I should have stayed in the city, and perhaps found work with Lord Vanek. I could have begun again as a junior clerk, and worked my way back up. Suddenly, the mouth released itself. The creature shivered once, expelled a burst of yellow bile, died. Got one, cried a voice, not too distantly. For a moment, Scotty lay still. His head throbbed and his chest burned. Out of the corner of his eye he saw movement. Another of the horrible monsters was scurrying towards him. He scrambled, trying to push himself free, but before he could come out, there was a sound of a bow cracking, and an arrow pierced the second insect. "Good shot!" cried another voice. "Get the first one again. I just saw it move a little." This time, Scotty felt the impact of the bolt hit the carcass. He cried out, but he could hear how muffled his voice was by the beetle's body. Cautiously, he tried sliding a foot out and rolling under, but the movement apparently had the effect of convincing the archers that the creature still lived. A volley of arrows was launched forth. Now the beast was sufficiently perforated so pools of its blood, and likely the blood of its victims, began to seep out onto Scotty's body. When Scotty was a lad, before he grew too sophisticated for such sports, he had often gone to the Imperial arena for the competitions of war. He recalled a great veteran of the fights, when asked, telling him his secret. "Whenever I'm in doubt of what to do, and I have a shield, I stay behind it." Scotty followed that advice. After an hour, when he no longer heard arrows being fired, he threw aside the remains of the bug and leapt as quickly as he could to a stand. It was not a moment too soon. A gang of 8 archers had their bows pointing his direction, ready to fire. When they saw him, they laughed. "Didn't anyone ever tell you not to sleep in the Western Cross? How are we going to exterminate all the Horvors if you drunks keep feeding them?" Scotty shook his head and walked back along the platform, round the bend to Havel's slump. He was bloodied and torn and tired, and he had had far too much fermented pig's milk. All he wanted was a proper place to lie down. He stepped into Mother Pascost's tavern, a dank place, wet with sap and smelling of mildew. "My name is Decimus Scotty," he said. "I was hoping you have someone named Eurus staying here." "Decimus Scotty?" pondered the fleshy proprietress, Mother Pascost herself. "I've heard that name. Oh, you must be the fellow he left the note for. Well, let me go see if I can find it."